I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order today. All members are present. We have established quorum. There are a couple cases on the agenda today, so I do ask for any members that are sitting on the general seating, if you do plan on speaking at today's meeting, I have to administer an oath, and after I administer this oath, all you have to do is say, "I do." Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth to this commission?
I do.
Sounds great. Thank you. We first on the agenda is disposition of our last meeting's minutes. They are, as always, attached to the back of our agenda. If you've had a moment to review those, either through email or sitting here, we can go ahead and vote on it, but I'll give everyone a brief 30 seconds.
And just to note that this was the planning commission that was at the evening time at the community center.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, I would move we accept them.
I second that motion.
Second.
Any objections?
Got it.
Discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Great. All right, our minutes, as always, great job, Charlene. But Charlene, you didn't do those minutes. If I stand corrected, I believe it was John and Paul tag teaming it. Good job. All right. Cases. First case is number 12-01. First of the year, the Wasserman Group. Stimson Garden Apartments is what's being touted. It is a Title 41 review. I believe drawings were disseminated to the commission at the end of December here through email. There's also copies on your desk, the sort of more blue scale drawings. It's at 22 West Stimson Avenue. It is the addition of number of apartments and the raising of the current building that's on the site, and also 18 parking spaces. Paul, look, has the city departments reviewed this request?
They have copies of those reviews are attached in your packets.
Oh, in my pack. Okay. Oh, I see it now. Thank you, Paul.
There's two of them, actually. One's going to be
Yeah, I got
Stimson.
fun.
The other one's going to be...
I have the Stimson one here. All right, we'll start off. John Paskey, you want to lead us through your comments real quick?
I can do that. Does everyone have a set of the drawings up there? That maybe will help explain some of the issues at hand. I think the little drawing on page C2, the cross-section, may best help understand what I'm going to try to explain.
Site section AAC2?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the profile.
That's a little cross-section through the building that kind of will explain the grade at the street level in the rear of the building. This is zoned B3, which multifamily is permissible in a B3 on second story and above. The parking would be considered the first floor of this building, therefore allowing the use to occur on the second floor and above. Front setback is okay. There's zero setback required in a B3. It does have 3 feet, which with the size of the building on the front is going to look rather intimidating, but it does meet the code. Rear setback, it does abut an R1 zone, and therefore it is required to have a 30-foot rear yard setback, which it does have. Screening will be required to be along the rear property line and by way of a fence, and that is shown on these drawings. Side yard setbacks are both okay. The height of the building measures, this is where it gets a little confusing, 49 feet to the ridge from the grade, from ground floor off of Stimson. Our code allows for 45 feet. So we can look at it as our code doesn't really define height. So the industry standard, and I pulled the stuff from the Ohio Building Code, would be the average of the height from the grade, the average grade around the building. And since it slopes up one side, and then obviously on the back side it's only 20 feet tall, or it'd actually be 28 feet to the ridge, and it's 48 feet on the front. So the average height is 30 feet, is the average height of the ridge off of the grade. And then our code also does allow for 3.5 stories, which is what this is. The fourth floor, so to speak, is in the attic of the structure, in the roof. And the lower level could be counted as 1, plus a basement or whatever. It's recognized as half as well. So it's a walkout basement in essence. So lot coverage was okay. It's not required in the B3. Parking requires 18 parking spaces. 18 are provided. The dumpster site, they have the trash located inside underneath the stairwell in the front of the building. It will require shade tree approval on the agenda. It's on the agenda for January 12th. I can't speak to this. I do have my concerns about that, just toward the number of trees, only because I don't know what type of trees they're talking about there. I don't know one tree from another by the name they're saying, whether they're large shade trees and how many they'll need. And the lighting is okay based on our code. Everything's downdraft or down pointed. So that's the gist of it. If you need any more clarification, I can read others on this height, if that helps you, or if you understand what I was trying to say there.
Well,
If you went straight on, you're saying it's at 49, where 45...
It's 40, what'd I say,
49 feet to the ridge.
49 feet to the
45.
ridge from off of Stimson Avenue side. And then as you can see from that cross section, it's 28 feet to the ridge, 29 feet to the ridge off of the rear of the building.
I just wanted to look at the bolt control section. What if, jumping ahead, I saw that Chief Troxel rear access. I'm kind of confused by how you reach the rear parking area.
It's accessed, Montrose does come off of Morris and dead ends into this parking lot. There is a parking lot just to the north of this right now that will be just past that.
So this is like the street of
No dead ends at that.
At the entrance of this, what will be the entrance to this building.
What's the first part? Okay, so Montrose comes into the parking lot in the back.
Yes.
Is that the case? And
Which, as you can see, is elevated approximately 20 feet higher than the front of the building.
so we want to look at this one right here, I guess. And that's a 14-foot right-of-way. I guess that's the concern the fire chief has. And this lot,
I'm not sure that was his concern. I think it's because it'll be built up right up against the back, correct?
Well, there'll be a parking area against the back.
Let me look, I honestly haven't seen it yet.
this is the fill area. The parking lot that's going to be, proposed parking lot site is on the same lot. And that's going to be the part that gets filled in. Is that the way I understand it?
Well, he's rear access, can we get a pumper into the rear area for vehicle fires in the garage?
Yes. You can't get
From
a
the ground
pumper in
floor?
there, but you'd be able to park your pumper right on Stimson, and the garage doors are 3 feet off the right-of-way.
They're in the front.
And if you look at the print, it's only one car deep. I think Chief Troxel at the time didn't have clarity on how the plans were working, how they were laid out. I do not want to speak on his behalf, though, Paul.
I would like to see the dumpster outside located away from the building, and you have it as an interior.
It's shown as interior, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with his statement on that. I know the state of Ohio is not real keen about having trash dumpsters, anything flammable underneath the stairwell. So that does not, and I think the state, and I can't speak for them, but I think they may say something about that, so.
Okay. Well, that's it. If it's caught fire, you'd have the stairwell on fire, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
And is that adequate distance-wise? I mean, if I look at the footprint of the trash area, assuming the interior. Let's see, where was it? I think I saw it in here. I think it's got a schematic with like 4 containers. It was about 41 feet minus 5, 20 feet, so it's about 18 feet, maybe.
It actually looks like the stairwell's in the other half, not where the other half of that protruding part in the front, not where the tractor's at, so.
It's got a bike rack.
Which will be required as well, won't it, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, Coach. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Similar there. So presently, what's constructed right now is actually, there's a parking lot behind the building presently right now, but that's another lot entirely.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's a line of trees there, looks like mostly locusts and some other trees, and will be removed?
Those on the property line may remain, but not many. And
Okay.
that's again where the shade tree's gonna come into play here.
Okay.
All right, so there's also a little footnote for B3 general business under the max height. It's whichever is less of the 45 feet or 3.5 stories. So you're telling me a basement does not count as a story, so that's sort of a free space you get to have or not have. Does it penalize you?
According to the Ohio Building Code, basement is that portion of a building that is partly plain where the finished surface of the floor above the basement is more than 6 feet above the grade plane or more than 12 feet above the finished ground level at any point. So it's neither of those. So I guess technically, according to the Ohio Building Code, the garage area classifies as a basement.
Right.
So wait a second, we've got,
So if you take away the basement, if it's, right now we're at 49 feet, you take away the basement, you're at 38 foot 8. So 38 foot 8 is the 3.5 stories. So that would be, I guess, okay. Correct? Yeah, that's the lesser of the two, the 45 feet.
so in one case we're calling it a first floor, the other case we're calling it a basement.
Well, I guess it's all the same. Basement.
They'd be interpreted based on
I
that.
don't know if you can have a basement at street level.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't think that would work. It wouldn't be a walkout basement in that instance. It'd only work as a walkout basement, I believe, if you would enter from the rear of the property. Let's see how you could enter.
You enter from the rear of the property, you're coming in at basically the third level.
You can't have 2 floors of basement?
Well, third level, the first level of residential actually does not have any, it too is behind the grade. No rear windows to it.
Yeah.
If you look at that cross-section, you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's either the first floor starts at where the second floor, the first floor starts all the way at street level. I don't think you can have, it's either all basement, both those 2 floors, that's 2 sub-levels, or...
Well, if you want to count it that way, then it's not all basement because it's greater than 12 feet, according to the state.
So anything greater than 12.
Maybe 20 foot 8 inches at that point.
Definition.
I went out to the property and looked at it. I'm grappling. I'm frustrated trying to determine how, in the back now of that property, is a patio piece, table with an umbrella, and maybe what's considered a sauna or a hot tub. But they're going to be able to build enough there's enough space in there to put this parking?
That's the building next.
It's that whole area you're talking behind that's going to be basically underground.
Yeah.
They're going to fill that
It's
up
all
to the
gonna be
level
filled.
of, basically up to the level of the parking lot that's on Montrose now.
I'm talking about from Montrose.
That parking lot, I didn't go up in there and look at that one,
Okay.
the one coming off.
The existing parking lot,
Existing.
that's to the north
North
of
of
this
it.
parcel line?
I'm talking about the rear of the property itself.
I thought that that hot tub thing was the next door. Are you sure it wasn't the next building over there? Because this drops off. Essentially what you're looking at here, this is where you drive, this whole area being filled in is going to be
Yeah.
where the drive-through was. You went basically around the building,
Came in that-
behind it, and out the other
Maybe so.
side. I thought this one was the one with the hot tub and umbrella. I forgot to bring my camera. I think I took pictures of it too.
Okay, let's see if there's any other comments first before we continue.
Oh, we still have to, okay, so one of the things that looks like
It's true.
a requirement that's being discussed here also is the dumpster. It sounds like we want to have it exterior, which would kind of clash with what we're trying to do about hiding things in the front setback. And to put it in a rear setback, actually, we were talking about running a dump truck, packer truck, through the back every time through Montrose,
Right.
which may or may not be feasible. Sorry if I think about trash a lot, but we've been, spent the whole year at the policy meetings looking at it, so.
Well, I assume that's how the other residentials are better down Montrose, right, is how trash and recycling is picked up.
But if you start looking at it, say 18 beds, I think that's usually, in our code, I think once you're talking about 5 to 6 cans or a dumpster itself, as well as recycling. So there may be a space problem there somehow. Unless, I guess, there was a way to fireproof the interior one. I don't know if that's up.
Well, the building
Is
will
this
be
being
fire
sprinkled?
suppressed, yeah.
Okay, so,
Oh, wait a minute, it's not commercial on the first floor, I take that back. It may not be. You are going to fire suppress it, okay. Yeah.
okay, because that would be a concern. We could make sure that the interior dumpster area or garbage can area's got some kind of protection, because, you know, the scenario where it does catch fire, I believe that stairwell area goes at least 2 floors up, 3, and unless you have fire breaks, it's a problem. No grills on balconies, well, that's a lot of building for a small lot.
All right, this goes back to our B3 code. B3 is principal permitted uses, any use permitted and regulated in B2 and B2D zones. Go to B2 zone is A, principal permitted uses, any convenience business or general business or services establishment is subject to the following general conditions. Residential uses are permitted only on the second story and above. Automotive services and service stations shall be 50 feet from any R zone, shall have no openings adjoining R zone other than stationary windows and fire escapes. Other uses, any other retail business or service establishment or use which determined by the BZA to be of the same general character as the above permitted uses, but not including any use first permitted or not permitted in B3 zone. All right, so the main issue is that we have a residential on the first floor. So the residential, the earliest it could be would be on the second floor of the property. That's my interpretation.
People are calling it the basement, right.
Either one or the other.
So either the basement becomes first floor, and then it needs to get smaller.
Well, according to our code, I'm just reading to you.
Just by 4
Story,
feet.
that part of the building between the surface of the floor and the ceiling immediately above. So that's definition of a story. The definition of a basement in our code: a story all or partly underground, but having at least one half of its height below the average level of the adjoining ground. So the question is, do you want to determine that as a basement? It could be interpreted as a basement or as a story. And if it is determined as a story, then the definition of, through the state of Ohio, the building height is the vertical distance from the grade plane, and the grade plane is the average of the grade on the outside. So if the front is 49 feet and the rear is 29 feet, the average is 39 feet. We do not have a definition in our code on height.
What?
So
Right.
I'm just going by the Ohio.
So, yeah, we'd have to go by, if we don't have definition, we should go with somebody who
Right.
does apply one, so.
In the OBC, it actually states that, the
Yes.
averaging.
The vertical distance from grade plane to the average height of the highest roof surface. Grade plane definition is a reference plane representing the average of the finished ground level adjoining the building at exterior walls.
But all averages, because we got 3 sides that are down low and only 1 side that's not.
One side, 2 sides down low, the west side is sloped.
Oh, is the west side
The west side is sloped with the
I
grade.
see, yeah.
Contour maps.
Okay.
C2.
Yeah, site grading plan. So now are we both considering both basements?
I'm sorry?
We're considering both floors basements?
Well, it's not considered a basement if it's more than 12 feet above the finished ground level at any point. Then
Right,
it
so
becomes, now it becomes a floor or a story.
Yeah, I don't see any way we could approve this unless all the residential moves to the second floor. In that case. Or,
No, it wouldn't have steps
so
in
it's,
the ground.
Yeah, you can take that.
the
I'm
thing,
seeing the back as being steps.
I really
No.
no, I don't see, yeah, that's a question. The only elevation we did is
Okay.
What Rick has provided are additional elevation site shots, Nicholas.
A2. I got it.
these are the entrances.
We did that.
I don't know.
So, what we're saying here is if we consider it a basement, then the
A2?
Yeah.
first level of residential is on the first floor, which would not be permissible.
I'm sorry, John, say that again.
If we consider the parking area a basement, then the first floor residential, the first level of residential is the first floor, which is not permissible. If we call it a story or a floor, then the building's too tall,
Right.
Right.
unless we go by the average of the grade, which, we don't have defined. So I guess that's where we need to, because we can rule out the basement part and look at the building height part, go by the average plane and calculate that, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, if it's too tall, I can't imagine it's really just probably has to do with the roof pitch, if anything, because they have
Exactly.
attic space. I don't see where that is the problem. To me, it's more just the second floor residential.
Okay, you might want to pass the
Yeah, so
other
this is
drawings along.
the updated elevation.
Down, lower the roof pitch. You'd have problems with this, wouldn't you?
Probably in that tallest portion.
But what I mean is that, would that be adequate for height?
Yeah, so the way it works is there's entrances on the first floor. There's basically first floor units, and then there's second floor units that have a second story. So the second floor is accessed from the Montrose side. The first floor units are accessed from the Stetson Avenue side. Up the steps. the stairs.
I haven't seen those elevations. Did Mr. Valentour lower the height? Is it the same?
Looks like, what's the top measure? 130. 130 is the eve. Is that what it is?
Did he change the pitch? It's 10-12 on here.
Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't say a pitch on these elevations. It looks pretty
Same.
roughly the same.
What is the ceiling height requirement, John?
7 foot.
7.
So
That
this
was
is 7.
9.
In
That's
our
8.
code. Yeah, they've actually got,
You mean in our code?
That changed. That came.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about moving things around type.
What's the state code?
7.
It is 7.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's scary.
It's 4 inches taller than a door.
Not much headroom for that.
Not for tall, but they've got well over that. Figure a foot for the floor thickness, so 9 feet approximately is what he's at floor to floor, or floor to ceiling here.
So, looking at the schematics again here, the basement plan shows where the trash is. The next one is actually an open area, and the second floor is actually where the deck comes into play. So we're looking at almost like a two-story enclosure for the bike rack / trash receptacles and recycling receptacles. I'm just trying to picture what I'm looking at in there.
Sorry, you have the area,
I'm looking at 1A, A1 I assume.
yes, you are correct.
So that's actually a two-story, that's almost like a vaulted ceiling. Yeah. I think I'd love to do this into place there. Very high ceilings. Good for bats, I guess.
Yeah, the stairs coming out of the parking area off Stimson, they only go up to that first level of residential use. And then obviously the second and third floor are 2-story type apartments that are accessed off the rear parking lot. So you're right, the front stairwell is 2 stories tall in essence, kind of off the grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of the, let's call it 4, it's 2.
Oh, that's that reaching. Let me go to second. All right. Comments?
Okay, so we haven't gotten past the engineering public works review?
No. And I took a quick peek at Troxell's comment about the rear access, but that's as far as I got. So,
Actually, I jumped ahead and was looking at the dumpster location from the fire chief.
yeah.
Carbon monoxide detectors, I assume so. Building address visible from the street. These are all givens, I assume.
And the state, would weigh in on that interior trash enclosure. We do have other apartment buildings in town that are fire suppressed, that have parking on the first floor that do allow for their trash to be stored inside. So I think the fire suppression system in the state will kind of determine that. If it's not permissible, then we'll have to go from there.
Okay. Looking at this here. So Anyhow, you have one entrance going into the upper parking lot.
So there's no commercial use in this building? Only residential?
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to openly ignore what's supposed to go in the B2 district? Or B3, I should say?
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later, I suppose, but it doesn't indicate what it just says it has to be on the second floor and above, nowhere in our code.
Well, it says
does it
where
indicate-
residential is located, but it clearly says it has to be a business in the B3. It says the principal permitted use is any convenience business or general business or service establishment. I don't even think this thing passes muster to be reviewed by Planning Commission. Residential is not on the second floor. There's no business. We don't know the height of the building.
I was under the impression anything that's allowed in a B and on R1, 2, and 3 is allowed in a B, 1, 2, and 3. I thought it was like a cupcake layer.
So someone could put a single-family residence in there.
Yes, they could. Except they couldn't be on the first floor.
Well, not on this lot. I had to build a tower to make it work. All right.
Well, I imagine it depends if you filled in behind it. I mean, if you were going
Yeah.
to, let's say we wanted to put a single-family house right there, or break it down to its original, whatever style that is, federalist or block brick thing, you basically have, you'd have probably some setback issues,
Right.
setback. Although in a B3, again, those all fall away. I mean, basically, our setback requirements for B3 are with the zone and not with the building.
I don't think you
use of the
can
building.
put any R1, R2, R3.
Yeah, I'm glad you
We
said
didn't
that.
set ours up this way. Now, we could have. We could have said, R1, R2 says any principal permitted in R1, but once we get to the Bs, it's entirely all business. And there's no...
This one right here. It's 230404.
Yeah, but that's B1. Once you get into B2, it goes into, it's a business district. B1's the neighborhood business zone, so that's why it allows the residential.
Okay, so 230405, basically, A1, residential uses are permitted only in second story or above. So it
Right.
assumes that there's residential uses allowed.
Right. I mean, on second story above. I guess that's what we got to figure out with this one is, we got to go with the floor. Right now, it doesn't work if we go with right now how the floors are set up. I mean, is there another way to set up the floors to make it work?
Even if we did call it a floor, how does it not work? It's 3.5,
Because
other than the height, if we go to the ridge.
Because we say second floor in our code, we don't say above the basement or above 12 feet. Our code explicitly spells out the second floor,
Okay.
or second story, I should say. So,
So if we call the first floor,
the second,
you got the parking on the first, residential on the second, third, and 3.5.
and then it's too tall. Is what we,
Too tall by way of the 45 feet, yes.
right.
If we go from the grade,
Right.
not the average plane, which, I'm leaving that up to you guys, because it's not defined.
Right, how do... Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my take, is I don't think we can approve this till the floor nomenclature is figured out to work with code, both Ohio Revised Code and our code. Other members, comments?
We received a number of communications. I don't know if everybody, did you make copies for everyone, Shar, here? And I don't know if there are people here that also would like to speak to this project.
Yeah, is there anyone else in attendance that would like to comment? Either, please come up to the,
Should the
either,
applicant speak first?
What was that?
If he wishes to do so.
Yeah.
oh, I thought you were speaking for the applicant. I
No,
apologize.
he's
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Table
Yeah,
it.
either the table or the podium, sorry.
Yeah, hold on. If you don't mind. I'd like to clarify a few things and then sort of speak generally. The stairwell that the mayor was referring to in the front, if you're looking at the proposed building from Stimson Avenue, you're looking at a parking garage with two openings, a stairway in the middle. That stairway goes up one flight to two doors for two 3-bedroom apartments. That stairway continues up to the third floor for an entrance to 3 4-bedroom apartments. Those 3 4-bedroom apartments also have a handicapped accessible access at grade level from the rear of the building.
Okay. So, I guess the question I was asking at the time is where the height, in terms of, again, trash, receptacles, and sprinkling, in theory, I guess, somewhere along the line.
Sure.
Where would that ceiling be for the sprinklers, I guess?
Be at about 9 to 10 feet.
Okay, so that's not a two-story roof? Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
So as regards the trash and the placement of the dumpster, I mean, we'll put the trash any way you want us to put the trash. But in the initial meeting that I had with the code director and the city planner, it was thought that the best place to put it was in the parking garage. We looked at that and said, well, there's not a lot of room extra in the parking garage, and the architect found room to the left and the right of that stairwell on the outside. Now, the state building code would not require this building to be sprinklered, but I would not build a residential complex that wasn't. And the fact that the code allows multi-residential complexes without sprinkling, I think, is a problem. But the first floor, the garage, will be sprinkled with a glycol system so that it doesn't freeze, and that could be extended to the area where the trash receptacle would be. So we would have that recovered. So I just wanted to make clear how those two things work. Speaking more generally, when I first came upon this project and looked at the Bellavino site and the building, began talking with the current business owner, the first thing we did was to say, well, there's a business here, and it's a nice building, and what could we do with this? And the problem with the building as it stands today, one of the problems is, it's exceedingly small. It's about 40 by 50. So with a footprint that large, it's hard to do a lot with. The other thing that you wouldn't know from looking at the outside is, there is no second floor in this building. It has 2 floors of windows, but the first floor goes all the way up to the vaulted ceiling effect like you were talking about. Now, this building has been added onto at some point. If you look at, I don't know, you guys don't have the photographs that I do, but I have some photographs here that show there's a concrete block addition that was built at some point that makes it the full 40 feet back. And that concrete block addition does have a little second floor, but that second floor is probably less than 20% of the building. So when you look at the site and you get it all done, putting a full second floor in it and sprinkling and building the whole thing up to code, you maybe, if you really crammed them in, you maybe could fit 6 bedrooms in there. The 3-bedroom apartment that we have spec'd out is actually the size of this entire building in terms of its floor plan footprint. But if you really squeeze them in, maybe you could get 6 bedrooms in there. But then, unfortunately, you have other problems with the code, because you'd never have enough room to park the cars necessary for 6 bedrooms of rentals, plus the 10 or so parking spaces the retail business would need, plus you would trigger the landscaping requirements, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not a big enough space to be able to work with the existing building that's there. And to make it economically viable, that's why we need to look at tearing the building down. Now, I mean, the bottom line here is that there's a property owner of this building that desires to sell the building. Building has been for sale for close to 9 months. This is the only contract for sale that has happened on that building in that 9 months. There isn't anyone else coming forward that says, well, I would like to have this building and I would like to build something there and either keep the building, not keep the building. There's no other activity. This is the only proposal currently.
Oh, you see, you own the building now, correct?
I do not own the building.
Can we look, I mean,
Yes, the
Okay.
applicant, the owner did sign on the application.
I was going to say, I think I could just propose.
The building is currently owned by Willem A. LLC, who has given
Where's that?
their consent to me to bring this proposal forward with the understanding that if I secure approval through this process,
Right.
I will complete the sale of the building. So what I'm proposing to do instead is to significantly improve the space. If you look at the building now, it has a parking lot around it that's in a very bad state of repair. The retaining wall is not in a good state of repair. And there's a lot of traffic in and out of this space right now because it's being used essentially as a convenience store and a carryout. There's cars going in and out all the time on Stimson Avenue. A shift to the use that we're proposing would cut the amount of in and out considerably. It would make the whole neighborhood safer by putting a sprinkler building into its midst, and it would conform, I believe, to the comprehensive plan, which speaks a lot about drawing students out of the R1 neighborhoods and concentrating them into areas that are higher density. And I think that we would do that. What I'm proposing to build is a real nice building. And I think that it will be a magnet for people who, the current student at OU who desires a nice place that has a lot of amenities, that's well-built. It has 9-foot ceilings. It'll be completely sprinkled all throughout. The idea that the third floor is accessible from both the front and the back is really attractive. So we're trying to do a real quality job here. The fact is that if you're going to put capital at risk on any sort of a building, there has to be enough of a critical mass when you're done to service the debt. So, it's a commercial space on a busy block. It's not going to go cheap. The property owner now wants a good buck for the building and the land. And then, of course, to build a building of this scale is going to require some significant capital. And I doubt that you're going to find anybody who's willing to put capital at risk for a project that's not big enough to generate the cash flow necessary to service that debt. I've gone on and on. I've obviously been looking at these plans for weeks, and I don't envy your situation as the commission where you have to look at something the day before you're asked to talk about it and fully understand it. So I was hoping that there'd be a little more give and take and I could clear up any other misconceptions about it. In my initial meetings with the code director, I was assured that it is a legal use in a B3 to have a parking garage on the first floor and to have residences on the second floor, third floor, etc. Considerable resources were expended on that assumption to draw up the plans that you have in front of you. And it seems to me there are quite a few other buildings in business areas around town that are doing exactly this, that were built exactly this way. If there's an issue with the overall height of the building, we have 9-foot ceilings spec'd out on both the third and the second floors. It wouldn't be any big deal to adjust that slightly and then adjust the roof pitch and bring it into whatever compliance is necessary if using the calculation that the code director alluded to with the average grade is not sufficient for the city, then I'm fairly sure that we could cure that problem. I do believe, and this is the last thing that I'll say, I do believe that in every other way, the project has been designed to meet both the letter and the spirit of the code as it's written today. Obviously, if you write a building code, people are going to build the code up to the edges of the building code, and I think that fairly clearly we've done that. And I think when we're done, we'll have a project that everybody can look at and say, well, it may not be exactly what I want in that space, but it's being built of quality. There's a significant safety issue, and it is helping us in terms of restoring the R1 neighborhoods to being more owner-occupied and less filled with rentals.
I think one of the considerations I have, Mr. Wasserman, would be, and just get your thoughts on this in terms of, you brought up the comprehensive plan. In many instances, the comprehensive plan seems to contradict itself. So on the other end, what the comprehensive plan wanted for Stimson is to be able to have availability of commercial space for businesses. So your project takes that away, and do you see that as maybe the first step in stranding some of the businesses that are currently on Stimson that might be adversely affected by, basically a completely residential unit coming into that space?
Well, no, I don't, and the reason for that is that typically, when one business closes, the business that's still in the area, or businesses that are still in the area are going to get more business. So for instance, there's a carry-out grocery store, not quite next door, but about a store and a half away from this. I mean, I don't think they're exactly going to mourn the loss of a convenience store and wine shop closing next door, because it's going to be more business for them. There's a space across the street that houses somewhat of a car dealership and used to have a pool hall. There isn't a great demand for businesses to go into those locations. Capital goes where people are willing to risk it in order to get a payback, and it's pretty clear there aren't a lot of people trying to do that on Stimson Avenue. Hocking Valley Bank bought the building 2 buildings away from this and turned it into an office building, where that had been a storefront building. So I think that if you had a lot of people wanting to open businesses in that location, you'd have that. In this case, I don't see it.
Well, let's get through all the comments real quick, and then we'll open it up to the floor. I've realized that we do have comments from the Engineering and Public Works. Most of these don't sound like showstoppers, kind of typical comments from the department. Streets, clarify curb cuts, show pavement detail, thickness to Stimson Avenue surface, requirements, storm drainage, water. Most of the stuff comes after the sort of final. See anything critical. Clarified grading plan as it relates to drainage and impact to stairs. Do you know what that would be?
The stairs are on the other lot. Or is that a right-of-way? That's a right-of-way?
Yeah, it's a right-of-way.
Oh, I
I
see,
guess
yeah.
we don't want to drain to the right-of-way. Looks like we're draining to the right-of-way. Yeah.
The contour map.
Yeah. That's what he's talking about. There is a couple storm drains in the parking lots, I guess. Yeah, there's... I think, yeah, he's just looking for like a paving plan that's going to show those slopes so that the draining's not going off to the side yard there. That's what he's like. All right, now, there's comments by people in the general audience. If you'd like to make those now, you could, either podium or at the table.
My name is Chris Paul. I live 35 Morris. I'm kind of here in a dual capacity. I'm the board council member for this ward. That's the subject of this project. Also, I live right on Morris Avenue, right behind this project. One thing I think we need to look at is impacts of this project off-site and mostly on the R1 areas. Montrose, right now, as it is a really dangerous road because it's very narrow, it's covered by because of various parking lots covered by gravel a lot of the times. People zoom in and out to go to that back parking lot. And other, like the fraternity accesses part of their parking lot and some other things. And it's also a major pedestrian right-of-way because it accesses the stairs that go down to Stimson. More people probably walk down Montrose than walk down East State Street in that general vicinity. Because nobody goes all the way down Morris to East State Street and then turns up. They all walk down Montrose. And in a day, you probably have, 100 people. And if we increase parking, access via Montrose, there has to be safety upgrades to Montrose. Because right now, it's a one-lane road, no sidewalks, no indication that it's a high pedestrian area, and it's dangerous. I've seen people whip down there, almost hit people, having to screech to a stop, besides all the pets that are in that area, and kids. I mean, there's a huge amount of kids that have increased in that area, and there's more that have moved in recently. And, because Ondas and Montrose are dead end, people ride their bikes and do all that sort of stuff back there. So we need to look at that pedestrian parking car access interface. We need to do something about it. Right now, where the dumpster is, that's where I'm assuming that the entryway is going to be for the parking area behind the apartment. That dumpster needs to be moved into a safe access way, because whenever it gets dumped, they put it right in front of the stairway. I mean, almost all the time. And I have asked Paul to talk to him, Paula to talk to him, me and Debbie and everybody, and they just can't handle putting it not in front of the stairway. And it's dangerous because there's little poles that go out right at shoulder length for people. So that needs to be addressed, because if he's going to put the entranceway there, that dumpster has to be located in a way that's not going to impinge on pedestrian safety. We have a pedestrian and bike safety plan now that needs to be looked at in terms also, besides the comprehensive plan. The other issue I have is this area seems to be being hit really hard by destruction and removal of the buffering strips. And when you have a business zone or an R3 zone that abuts up onto R1 zones, buffering is essential. Good building design helps a huge amount. Not having outdoor party places facing old people's home would have been really nice. But buffering is really important. And I don't know, right now there's a really nice buffer of trees. There's locusts, there's pine trees, there's some other evergreens. And my concern, if those are wiped out and, some chokecherries and service berries go in there, that's not going to provide a buffer. And a fence doesn't provide a buffer. I mean, it provides a visual buffer to some degree, but it's not providing the impact from noise and lights and those sort of buffers. Vegetative buffers are the only thing that really does that, unless you build one of those big walls that they have along the freeway. So we need to look at that when maybe it's going through the tree commission of buffering, serious buffering. Some really underhanded tree people went through the neighborhood this summer and conned people into cutting down their pine trees because they were old and sick. And unfortunately, we've lost buffering there too. So we need to look at that, because many of the parking lots have gone in and people just cut down everything and don't think about buffering. And that's, good for people who rent, people who own, the visual impact of everybody around there. I think that's essential. And I'd like to have it addressed in this issue, because with all the other changes that are going on to Stimson, that even though it may be a nice building and such, those sort of noise impacts and light impacts without good buffering will impact the R1 zone. And what we'll get is conversion to rentals again, because it's a real iffy neighborhood right now. It's really on the edge. So.
Thank you.
I'm Ron Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of the Athens County Historical Society. I sent all of you a document that outlined my points of view, but I would like to hit those quickly. Mr. Wasserman, do you want a copy of that?
I would love one. Thank you so much.
As the director of the Historical Society, I'm very concerned about this issue for a number of reasons, and as a citizen, I'm concerned about it as well. I have absolutely nothing against Mr. Wasserman, and I wish him well. This is all about the city and some issues that I think are of grave concern to all of us. My understanding of reading the code, and I am not an expert, but my understanding of reading the code, both for this hearing and for the zoning codes, would suggest that this hearing is required to take into consideration or to understand that anything you decide here does not replace other applicable sections of Athens City Code. I think there is a violation of Athens City Code in that I think the language of a B3 business district is very clear. I don't think there's any ambiguity about it at all. And it says very clearly that this is Athens Code 230405 B2 Business District, which is referred to from the B3 clarification. And it says, this established zone, in my words, this established zone may be used for, here's the quote, any convenience business or general business or services establishment subject to the following general conditions. Residential uses are permitted only on the second story and above. To me, the language is crystal clear. There has to be a business on the first floor. Now, there may have been exceptions made in the past. I think those were made in error, and I don't think we should perpetuate those. I think the language is very clear. I think if we were to have a business on the first floor, it takes away the parking spaces that the Wasserman Group needs for its apartment complex. So I think, in my opinion, this is a clear issue of the zoning would not permit this. However, if that even should be considered, it would require a variance, I'm sure. Very adamantly defend my point of view in front of the zoning board. If it should somehow get beyond this point to the zoning board, I think there are other factors to deal with. I'm sure that Mr. Wasserman and his group believes that this is going to be a beautiful building. The destruction of a 100-plus-year-old building that is part of our historical nature of this city is a great loss. Now, I don't think that it is appropriate to tear down this building for any reason. The fact that its current owner wants to sell it is, I feel for that person. I would like to see her make the money that she wants, but when you own a historically significant building, this is part of what goes with it. You have to care for it, and you have to deal with what you're going to do with it afterwards. You don't just destroy it. This building has great historical significance as a representative of the Athens Brick Company, which was a major manufacturer here and a major part of this community at the turn of the 20th century, and I think is worthy of saving. The other component is, for me as a citizen, I perceive, and the language of the code gives me this, negative off-site impact. And I'm sure it probably has a much more specific definition, but for me there's a great negative off-site impact when we destroy our historical remnants. We can't ever put them back. Not only that, many of us do not wish to see more apartment complexes all over the city. I have no objections to student housing. I have no objections to apartments being built, but I see no reason to take up a B3 zoned area, put in yet another apartment complex to go in opposite the apartment complexes across the street and around the corner. And I think it further erodes the residential areas around it. So this is, again, no offense to Mr. Wasserman whatsoever. I hope you build that building. I just hope you build it elsewhere.
John, this building's not on the register or anything, historic national register.
Paul, can you answer that better than I?
No
Not-
deed
not that I'm aware of.
restrictions that we're aware of.
Being on the National Registry carries with it no requirements that a building can't be torn down or retrofitted in any way as is. But as far as I'm aware, the building is not registered with the state or with the U.S. Is that correct?
Sorry.
The building is not registered.
It is not registered on the historic register. That doesn't change its value.
Any other comments?
Did you want to read
Yes.
into the record the
Yeah.
two correspondence?
Take turns?
Two?
Was it-
There's more than
was it
two.
two? Oh,
Two.
oh,
Yeah, there's
more
one.
than two.
Yeah. I'll do this one here on, I'll do this one here.
Four.
This is-
Well, I should have
And I
five.
guess I have an email.
1, 2, 3, 4, and Ron's, yeah.
You got more than we do.
Oh,
Yeah.
I sent them all.
Mostly emails, right? Emails and letters?
Yeah. Alright, so these can be entered into the record. We'll provide these to you, Charlene, as well, so. This is from Delia Rapp, Dear Paul and Paula. As members of the Planning Commission, I write you to remind you that even though Rick Wasserman continues to stay in the press, that the city's comprehensive plan states that we should be relocating students out of the R1s to house them in a business or mixed location. That part of the plan carries no rank than historic preservation section of the plan. Furthermore, Stimson Avenue is a very well-traveled artery of the city, not only by vehicles, but is a very dangerous crossing for pedestrians as well. I mainly speak of the pharmacy as its parking across the street from the business. The Hocking Valley Bank also has two office buildings across the street on Simpson from their main building. Years ago, the Pure Store employees wrote a letter to the city asking for a better solution to the dangerous cross-section on Simpson Avenue. That's from Billy Rapp. From Peter Kotis.
Kotsis.
What is it?
Peter Kotsis.
Kotsis, thank you. As a lifelong resident of Athens and a business owner, I would like to voice some concerns regarding the proposed apartment project at 22 West Simpson Avenue. You're welcome to share my thoughts to the Planning Commission. I am concerned that planned development at 22 West Simpson Avenue is going to sacrifice the commercial location in order to provide parking for apartments. Let me be clear, it is not the apartments that I take issue with, but the elimination of the street-level commercial location. Stimson Avenue is a unique spot within the Athens community. It is the only retail corridor that stands between the east side, where my family resides, and the university campus in Uptown area, where many of these residents work. Vehicles enjoy convenient access to Stimson Avenue businesses, and business owners enjoy lease rates that are more affordable than Uptown. My wife and I saw commercial rental space for our bicycle shop in late 1996. We quickly deduced that the price of uptown retail space, combined with the lack of parking, could significantly impact the profitability of our new venture. As we look into the other retail areas in town, we found that there was not much business space available that fit our criteria of being close to the city center for pedestrians and cyclists, and still having good vehicular access for customers needing to drop off bicycles and other large items for repair. Our search for a viable space took 18 months and is documented by the fact that we legally established our business in June 1996, but we did not open our doors until April of 1998. We had completed a business plan, secured financial backing, and established vendor relationships in 96, but could not find a suitable space until 97. Most entrepreneurs don't have as much time to search for commercial space. They have two other options: to never open up or start up in a location that's not favorable to the health of business. Neither option does much for the entrepreneur nor for a community that would like to have a diverse services located within the city limits. In comparison, when we decided to open a second bicycle shop in Parkersburg, West Virginia, the time from the project's inception to being open for business was just 6 months. We spent 6 weeks looking at 5 locations, all of which fit our criteria. It was simply a matter of negotiating a favorable lease. In short, Athens needs more, not less, options for business locations. Stimson is a great place for the city to develop as a business corridor. Anything that can be done to encourage that corridor would be best interest to our entire community for decades to come, rather than provide a benefit for 18 people who will now have a place to live on Stimson Avenue. I hope the Planning Commission can work with the project's proponent to find a creative way to create an end result that offers a robust combination of commercial and residential space. This one from Karen Don. So, thank you. In view of all the sad and desecrating occurrences that are happening and have happened to beautiful old buildings in Athens for lack of any controls whatsoever, including the potential raising of the old carriage house on Stimson Avenue for yet another student apartment building, and the tearing down of a vintage home on Morrison Avenue for a parking lot. Can't you hear Joni Mitchell's Pig Paradise and put up parking lot lyrics in your close parentheses? I would like to know if and when we could count on having some kind of plan for preserving what is left of Athens' original buildings to retain what is left that makes Athens unique. And the last comments to the Planning Commission were from Glenn Matlick. I am concerned about aspects of the project proposed for my neighborhood. By breaching a narrow residential commercial buffer strip, it would threaten quality of life and property values. Please take my comments below in consideration reviewing the project. The project is a multi-unit apartment house, the Stimson Garden Apartments, proposed for 22 West Stimson, the present site of Belladina Beer and Wine Shop. I have reviewed the preliminary architectural drawings prepared by RBC Architects submitted to Wasserman Group of December 14, 2011. My main concerns revolve around the buffering function of the landscape features behind the proposed project. Stimson Avenue, busy commercial street, runs very close to the south edge and near east side, a thriving residential community. Because many of the activities of the large street, heavy traffic, bright lights, noise, commerce, etc., are incompatible with the pedestrian safety, property values, and quality of life in the neighborhood, it is essential that some sort of buffer be maintained between the two. At present, a steep bank, a thin zone of trees, and several stable residential properties serve an effective buffer. I'm worried, however, that the proposed development will make a large hole in that buffer. The most important objections are related to parking on the north side of the proposed building. Number 1, landscaping. The narrow band of trees presently growing behind Belladina, large white pines, box elders, and walnuts would be removed and replaced by an even narrower strip of such smaller trees and shrubs, mainly Chinese juniper and serviceberry. Inspection and landscape drawings show that the proposed strip of vegetation would be no wider than Stimson's sidewalk for most of its length, whereas the existing trees are capable of 30 or 40 feet in height. Proposed species grow to only 5 to 10 feet. Thus, the proposed landscaping is neither tall enough nor thick enough to buffer light and noise from Stimson Avenue. The proposed American elms are too few to fill the gap in the buffer, even as mature trees. Indeed, it is questionable whether they could develop a healthy root system in the small space allocated to them. The proposed fence could not be built just tall enough or thick enough to serve the buffering function either. 2, traffic. The submitted plans indicate 9 new parking spaces to the back of the proposed building, accessible from Montrose Avenue, which would seriously increase the traffic loading on Montrose. 9 more cars would bring large street noise and safety issues to a small residential street. Notwithstanding its grand name, Montrose Avenue is a little more than an alley, and more than 12 feet wide, which the right-of-way is 14 feet, where it passes between the numbers 23 and 31 Morris Avenue, and has no sidewalks. Despite its small size, Montrose presently serves 20-car lot, providing parkings for 22 West Stimson and 28 Montrose Avenues. Provides access for large trash trucks serving the dumpster at the stop, the stairs connecting Montrose and Stimson. Montrose is also used by dozens of pedestrians every day, bringing vehicular traffic into conflict with foot traffic. At its present size and traffic loading, Montrose cannot support 9 more cars without a substantial increase in noise and pedestrian danger in the Montrose on this neighborhood. Thus, increased traffic would also be a form of a breach in the neighborhood commercial buffer. Number 3, drainage. It is clear from the architectural drawings that almost the building site would be covered with impervious surface. As a residential building, this appears to violate city drainage requirements. And we talked about already that this is a, it's the sort of loophole that you can put a residence in a B3 as long as it's above a story. So I think there's a lot of confusion by that. Back to the letter. In short, the Montrose accessible back parking lot makes the proposed project unacceptable. The solution would be to make arrangements to park night course in underused lots across Stimson and those adjacent to the dry cleaners. This would have the added benefit of allowing larger floor plan for the building, better drainage, and even thicker buffer strip. In the long term, city code could be changed to reduce the parking requirements for development and increase the ability for residents to use off-lot parking. I also recommend the concept of commercial residential buffers built into the city code. I urge the City Commission, or City and the Planning Commission, to send this proposal back to the developer for reconsideration. With the imagination, the project can be executed while protecting the neighborhood that sits behind it. You think otherwise? Good word. Other comments?
Do you feel that we need a legal review of this whole,
Second.
the whole B3?
Needs some sort of form of clarification. I don't think Pat Lang would do it in a timely manner, though. So, is there...
Well, I think you would.
Okay.
You force them to.
Well, we got a number of outstanding issues we haven't heard anything back from, so. If you want to add to that list, I'm on.
I thought we were on a timetable to make a decision.
Well, we are at a timetable. That was one.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be unfair to Pat Lang. I know he's busy as well. No, me.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah,
for Title 41, there is a
Yeah.
clock that is ticking.
I mean, right now, I don't think getting past Shade Tree Commission, if you look at the buffer nomenclature and shade tree items for the amount of impervious lot they have.
Shade Tree Commission took out the buffer zone years ago. All it's required is the
is that
number of
wrong?
trees based on the square footage and the screening. So that does work as the buffer. And that is something we have been discussing that I've been proposing to put back in, and I know they're talking about it. But the 4-foot, 8-foot buffers between properties are no longer required.
Sorry, I
This
was
might be
looking at
outdated
an
on that.
outdated part of the code.
I haven't seen the notice up in.
So our timeline is such, within 15 business days from the date that the reports are filed with me, the Planning Commission shall review the application for site plan approval and shall either approve the site plan or shall approve it, subject to conditions, modifications. I just don't know. You have 2 weeks, Rick?
Do I?
No, I thought you
I
had
have a
time.
deadline on January 15th, that I have to inform the current owner whether or not I've gotten the approval that I need. I'm not saying it couldn't be extended, but that's not the point. The plans that you have in front of you meet the current code, and the comments that I've gotten from other folks before I came here was, if you meet the minimums of the code, the Title 41 process will result in an approval.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we're looking for clarification. Do you meet the minimum of the code? And I think it just has to do with how those stories are assigned. And I don't know. I mean, it might be just talking to Ohio building code official as well.
That doesn't really clear up the other issue about the B3.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd also have to grant it a variance without a
Well,
commercial use.
When I spoke before, we've come across this issue before, and has been determined that although it says residential on the second floor and above, it does not say what is required to be on the first floor. There's no definition for it. And I can't speak for Mr. Lang, but
Right.
I mean, so that's the issue at hand, is the parking count as an alternative option. It's not
Right.
residential, and it says residential uses are permitted only on the second story and above. So this is the reason that this has been, recommended through me and the department in the past and this time as well, so.
Right.
And realize, with the integrated service, Title 41, this is a B3. We're
Right.
looking at the same thing. We had basically apartments on top and empty, really nothing on the bottom.
Right.
You know,
Right.
parking or not. And again, it's just saying no residential on the first floor. Residential must be on the second floor. It doesn't even say what has to be on the first floor.
Right, and then we, as a plan commission, we had approved the one that put it on the second floor, but had sort of, because it was not on it, was in the sort of B3 where it was really in a neighborhood sort of
Adjacent to
situation
it.
as opposed to a commercial street, that we had urged BZA to grant it a variance to put it on the ground level. We could urge BZA to do a variance, to put it on the ground level again.
It would impact the parking.
I
at
don't,
this point.
yeah, I don't
Right.
know. You could get parking.
But I think this one's different if we're going to qualify it as a basement and a first story. Now this one's really, for the only way we can approve it as is if all the residential is up to the second story.
Okay, to me, it sounds more like nomenclature. I mean, basement is the first floor on one
I
side.
agree. I think that's all it is, but we gotta, once we go with the other nomenclature, then the height of the building has to get smaller, lower.
Right, I don't think it matters
Yeah.
whether we go first floor or basement. If, bottom line is the residential on the second floor and above and doesn't meet the height requirement. As of right now, if we want to go from ground to ridge on the front, then it does not meet the height requirement. And, then they'd have to come back showing us that they can reduce the height, change the pitch, whatever it may be. That's the only
How much height are we talking about offhand?
4 feet.
4 feet. And go from 9 to 7 feet.
Well, no, if we go first floor, if we now name the basement first floor so that residential can exist on the floor above the street level that we're talking about, then we have to measure up from that first floor, 3.5 stories or 49 feet, whichever is less.
No, I think we still go overall height from the ground, not from the roof of the parking area. I think we count, if we're gonna go that route.
Yeah, no, it would be the ground, because you'd have to do first floor.
Right, and my calculations that I did were, 49 foot from Stimson Avenue.
Right, from Stimson Avenue up. But if we have to take the average of all the grade,
If we use the average, it's in compliance.
okay. Because you were saying that's 38 feet or 30?
Didn't figure it out exactly what it would be, but it's pretty self-explanatory. If the front is 49 and the back is 29, that it's gonna hit.
I guess we gotta figure out what that is. That's gotta be determined, I can't just...
He's just breaking it down on average, 20 feet difference.
Right.
So that's why he's coming up with 39.
Okay. Yeah, it's 20 foot 8. Yeah, but that's just on one side, and it's gotta be all the planes. So someone has to basically add all that up.
Are you talking about actually trying to do a calculation of where the slope is on the side
Yeah,
setbacks?
I mean, that's how the verbiage, I can't do it any other way, I'm not... I wish the code wasn't that explicit, I just said, because
I can figure that out. We're not gonna do it right now. I mean, the length of the building is 92 feet on the back. You got 29 feet on the front. You got 49 feet on the one side. You got 49, the other side you got 39. So add it all up, calculate the number, see what it comes out to be. I think without doing the calculations, I think you'll find it'll fall under 45 feet. But I can do that.
let's see, when jumping to recommend, put a motion out here to approve this.
I would put a motion that we approve the Stimson Garden Apartments.
With, I guess, the condition that the city review comments are met as
Yes.
well as
Engineering comments as well as the fire.
fire.
Verify everything.
Height, the height issue, and then the shade tree commission.
Shade tree.
Shake.
Where does dumpsters say in Title 41 have to be?
What?
What?
Doesn't.
We can't really do anything about the dumpsters, I'm fearing now, we can't even...
I think if we're talking about sprinkling that area, I think that would cover the concern of the fire chief.
That's what it
Yeah,
was.
that's what
Okay. All right, so with the conditions being met of the city review as well as some sort of verification on what the height is based on Ohio building code.
I will do that.
So that would be my motion.
Okay. Is there a second? It's not good.
I'll second.
Okay, again, I am concerned about that we're losing commercial space. That is a good point that's been brought forward from some of the conversations. To me, when I look at this, there's, again, what I know of Title 41 is that really, if it meets all the code, we can't stop it. What it tells me is that we need to work on the code.
Right.
That this does not reflect what we want as a finished product, obviously, both in terms of the type of commercial area we're losing. Again, the return on investment is really what's driving this, and I understand that the trend is to intensify. The concept of infill is well documented in our comprehensive plan. So it tells me that we still have, there's a lot of little pieces that have to be worked out on our zoning code. Primarily because this is a generic B3, and the amount of B3 we have fits different characters of different areas.
Well, what I'm concerned about too is that, we're establishing a trend now with like the integrated services in this, and it's coming from, if I'm not mistaken, the same architect. So we've got a template of doing something that is kind of skirting, meeting the minimum requirements, but I think skirting maybe the spirit of what's trying to be attempted in that neighborhood. And I think, just to follow up also, I think the fact that we're talking about as far as the off-site impact in terms of safety, I've been back in that area, and I can see when it's filled that you have a lot of issues in terms of safety from pedestrian meeting vehicular, meeting bicycle, that you have a lot of confluence all of a sudden that's with this addition. Just gets that much more complicated. And Montrose is, as the councilwoman did say, it's a very narrow street. So, I think it also puts a burden on the city and city administration to come up with some sort of solution to, if this were granted, then how are we going to ease some of that impact as far as certainly the ingress-egress aspect of the entranceway, because again, you are emptying out into a residential area, although the funeral home is across the street, catty corner, but nonetheless, you're talking about just that much more impact on a residential area that's already being overburdened. So, if those are the things that really don't get answered by Title 41, and there's nothing we can do about that, then yes, then there's something I think we need to do in the future in terms of tightening up the code in such a way that we can avoid this situation again. But what I'm concerned about mostly is also a trend that may be developing. That when Mr. Wassman brought up the convenience store, I don't see that. That's an impossibility, that the owner of that property could tear that down and basically do the same thing, in which case you're losing a little bit more commercial space. On the other hand, Mr. Wassman brings up a really good point. I think people have tried, for the most part, to develop a commercial element to Stimson Avenue. That was part of the whole Stimson project, if I'm not mistaken, the Mill Street project. And with the exception of a couple places in terms of new business, it hasn't met with much success. So, Mr. Wassman's right. It's a real quandary as far as, the project itself I think is good. My concern is we're losing that commercial space on what would be the first floor, the ground level on Stimson Avenue. That would be my biggest concern, as well as the impact in the back on Montrose. But again, if we can't resolve that through Title 41, then that's something that we certainly need to be cognizant of in the future, especially protecting what's remaining on Stimson Avenue that can remain commercial.
Montrose really is an alley, and it's in poor condition now. I can't even limit it to one-way traffic because, it's a dead end. And I don't know that I wouldn't like to hear from the law director about this. When I read it again, and perhaps we were wrong, in the past in terms of our interpretation, it clearly states, as you stated, any convenience business or general business or services establishment subject to the following conditions, residential on the second floor. But there's no business, there's no service establishment. Is it possible that we interpreted it incorrectly in the past?
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest issue with the project is if we're saying it's accepted by code, I'm questioning whether it's accepted by code.
So you were asking, okay, so
some sort of, I would say we could still approve it today based on if our interpretation of code is correct. The one right now.
I don't know if that would fly or not. I think you'd have to say that it is not correct and therefore vote it down if you want to go. I mean, essentially, if you say it's okay, then it will go forward.
Right.
By the process, and we're asking for a second opinion after the fact. Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about the what we're trying to do with right here. In the future, if we're trying to look at other things, the next thing to do is, is change Title 41 so there is a refusal process in there.
Right.
When it was crafted, the intention was not to stop anything. To have the power. No, wait a second. Make sure once it was in code,
Right.
that it was fixed. Okay, but you can see that we've had a couple here that they're larger than we think when we're done.
Right.
This is going to now stand 2 stories above the plane of that Montrose area.
Yeah.
Where before it was just a cupola. I mean, if you're looking out there, you got a line of trees, you got a little.
Well, we used to have communications where a project was brought up and then it became a case.
Well, we canceled in December.
Right.
And I was part
I
of
didn't
that,
understand
so,
that was this
because he
on the
was
agenda
planning to
then.
come
Okay.
to this.
I wouldn't have had that canceled if that was the case.
It was a communication, and I don't know if it's all in place. So theoretically, there are things that could be done. We could look at square footage in terms of platform, square footage in terms of three-dimensional, change the height requirements that fit better with what we want to see.
Right, but that's neither here nor there because
No.
they have the application in now. So
Yes.
my concern again is just how we're interpreting the B2. Now, both city planner and director of code enforcement believe that residences are allowed without any commercial entity.
Because it hasn't been defined, that's the only reason that I'm saying yes.
And the implication, if it says residential on the second floor above, the residential is allowed. Now, you're saying that because of the principal
You may be
use.
right.
To me, it says principal permitted uses, any convenience business or general business or services establishment.
We wouldn't even need to say that if that didn't matter.
I don't know. Probably, we have a timing issue. Rick, we would not meet again until the 18th, which is 3 days after your deadline.
Can we
We have
move a
a
meeting up?
special session.
We could,
Have a special session?
we could.
See what's going on next Wednesday, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Madam Safety Service Director, is a parking garage not a service?
You know what, I was wondering about that, but this
Yeah, it's
hasn't...
another,
Parking garage
it's going to be for the residences, so, no.
Yeah, I mean,
It's really just an amenity.
like, this is
It has to be a
commercial, this is
publicly available
proprietary.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
It doesn't say it has to be a publicly available service, it just says it has to be a service.
Since we're talking from the floor, may I speak?
Go to the mic so we can hear you.
Sure.
I think the intent of the code is very clear, that this is to be a business for the public. It does not in any way, shape, or form suggest that a garage for the tenants of a particular apartment is a service establishment. I think the intention is to talk about business from the sense of open to the public. So I would argue, again, very adamantly, that this is a violation of the code. I disagree with our city service director that there's any other way to read this. And I would love to have the opportunity
I think
to
she's
talk-
agreeing with you.
I'm not
This is-
sure which way to read
Mr.
this.
Patrick, I apologize. I do not believe that the language is unclear. It should be a business or a service establishment or a convenience business. And a parking garage for tenants is none of those things.
All right, let's get clarification and meet Wednesday.
Okay.
That's that we can't keep going around on this.
At noon again? Can we,
Does it work?
Okay, which day?
the 11th?
A week
Yeah.
from today.
Yeah.
So the motion,
What?
well, let's see, you're still in, you're good to the 15th here.
Yeah, exactly. You gave us
So let's see,
This is
so
the final-
we're talking about the 11th, you'd still be acting at that point, okay? If you want, you don't have to come if you don't need to, but
So will we
Your
be
business.
holding it, Chair, just for this special session to
Yeah.
address, okay.
Is that all right?
okay, so should I withdraw my motion?
Yeah, I'd
Move to, the
withdraw.
motion would be, we need an opinion from the law director.
Yeah.
I
and
move that.
Table further discussion to the 11th at a special session.
Continue until then, okay. And that's my
Next
motion.
Wednesday.
All right, a second?
I'll second that
Thank you.
motion.
Any, okay.
Any
you're supposed to
opposition?
run this. I'm trying to move, that's all.
Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Thank you.
Okay, so we're waiting for opinion from the law director.
All right, let's
Okay.
move on to our other case.
Do you know if those drawings back?
We don't have it.
That one right there, I think. Yeah, this would be economic drawings.
In this piece here.
Sorry, we can't get it on Wednesday.
Thank you so much, we want to see you.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right, thank everyone for sticking through our marathon session here. I'm sure this is nothing compared to the mayor's press conferences.
It's okay, we'll survive.
All right, next case, number 1202, Panachinolis. The applicant is Family Oxygen, off State Route 56, Title 41. And because my employer is the applicant, I am not permitted to discuss anything here, but I will still MC things.
Okay, so,
All right, the project is, I think, on this white 36 by 24 printout. Comments have been provided by the city. John Paskey, you want to lead us off again?
I gotta refresh my memory.
It is on 709 West Union Street.
Yes.
I had it out.
second one on the floor.
There it is.
This is for the gentleman who owns the, was it Family Oxygen? Family Oxygen business that's currently out on West Union Street, and he is looking to purchase this property and build a new structure for his business, and also a part of the structure would remain open for tenant space, commercial tenant space, I may add. As far as the zoning, it's zone B3. This use is quite acceptable there. The setback, both front, rear, side were okay. The height was okay, lot coverage okay. Parking required 18 parking spaces there, provided 20, including a handicap space. Dumpster area is located and screened. It will need to go through shade tree next week, but based on my calculations and on theirs that they've indicated on drawings, it looks like it should be okay. Lighting, parking lot lighting and building lighting were okay, and a sign permit will be required, but the size and location as they have shown did look like they would meet code. So, I can let Paul take it from there. I think there were some issues about traffic, but I wasn't in on those conversations. So,
I think the only significant question or concern was in relation to the curb cut. Was a question of where it would align with the curb cut for the ODOT service facility garage. The request of the city is that those curb cuts be equal to each other so that we don't have multiple left turn, right turn conflicts there. It is a pretty busy highway, and I believe the posted limit's either 45 or 50 miles per hour.
40.
40?
40.
Okay.
Trust me.
So it's 40 miles per hour, and there are situations where we get traffic inbound is stacked at the red light at 56 and Union Street. So that was the only request, I believe, is that the curb cut be parallel
Just the front,
with the ODOT garage.
or state route there.
Okay,
Is this the old demos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim Thomas with Anderson Knowles here too, to represent the owner.
There was also a note that Andy made about because there's a possible future expansion and there's not a known use, and Andy Stone was indicating that if it were to be a high-trip generator like a fast food drive-through or what have you, we'd have to look at those curb cuts.
The owners can't, at this point, of course, you know, that's hindsight, but they supply medical supplies and stuff like that, and they kind of see their tenants being medical-oriented, you know, well, that's what they hope for. So there's no plan right now to have anything high volume like that. Now, that doesn't say that someone will come in and say, you know, we'd like to do that, but the intent right now is to have more office or small retail in that space.
okay. Good. Though I think this was brought up at the staff meeting, was it? And one of the concerns, again, is to reiterate the positioning of the entrance to the parking lot. You pull further away from the intersection, 682 intersection, and along 56. I guess that would be going south or southwest, I guess. I don't know my compass points offhand. And that it would be parallel, to reiterate what you're saying, parallel to the ODOT.
Parallel with the
entrance.
ODOT curb cut.
Directly across from them. I think it is.
Right now, the existing curb cut, I think, is pretty close to
Yeah,
that.
it's,
Yeah,
When
just,
I was shooting grades there, that came out when everybody was coming out at the same time, we were facing each other.
okay. Well, the idea there is if it ever has to pick up in terms of control or traffic control, we have so many streets right now that do not line up as an intersection.
Right.
We'd hate to be, put a stamp on one more. I didn't see any other problems with this, did you guys? I know. You can't say a thing.
You've received this, right, the staff review notes?
Yes, I have, I didn't see, the only thing I saw, Andy was mentioning a 4-inch water tap. Is that the size of the main there, or is
He said 4-inch minimum
that what it is?
tap will be
Yeah,
required.
4-inch water line to curb.
There is a comment on the staff report from, relating to fire. I was waiting for confirmation from Chief Troxel as to whether a hydrant was needed or not. In a conversation he had with our service safety director this morning, he said it is not needed.
Is a hydrant nearby, is that it, or the flow is adequate?
Yeah.
Said not needed.
The mayor,
Yeah, there's one located on the
Are you
road
talking
on
through
the
this?
southwest
this moving back
of the
down.
property,
Yes.
so that's in the right way.
Yeah, there's one showing.
And it will.
Okay, 'cause that's awful close to,
You're comfortable moving the entrance, the curb cut entrance?
What's that?
You're comfortable moving that curb cut entrance?
Are
Agreed.
A little bit over?
you talking about just shifting a little bit, I mean, a few feet, or?
well,
opposite the ODOT.
we're shifting it where it would make a difference, because I think you're talking about, as far as like the convenience store, people slowing down in there, going in and out there, the ODOT, where,
So you're just asking to line it up across from ODOT, right?
I believe what he's showing on there is pretty close to that.
Yeah, I can go down and measure the center line of ODOT's, and we can run that.
I mean, you can't come
The
down.
way I understand it, there was actually a diagram someplace that was floating around. that none of this shows the actual intersection
No.
across the street. But I thought we had a diagram that was put out, at least on the staff level. And it comes down to moving it further away. Two things are going on. One is moving it away from the intersection.
Right.
The congestion there and the gas station. The other side was, if we keep moving it further down, the speed's going to pick up, because that's where everybody comes in faster. So to put it on the far end of this, I guess the southernmost end of this lot, let's say you want to move this all the way across, and it would no longer be lined up with ODOT.
Well, I'm just talking about, like, even just going,
That's what
Yes,
it's going to do.
that's what we're talking about. At midway, you cover it so it lines up with the other intersection across the street. Rather than, because the idea is to move it all the way down here, we may end up with the speed picking up both directions.
right.
And that was a discussion, I think it was with the Chief Pyle, I believe was the conversation we had with him.
Yes, and Mr. Thomas says he's willing to do that,
Yes.
so.
So, any other discussion, I guess? I will make a motion. Harry, why don't you make a motion?
Oh, I move that we approve this application.
Okay, I'll second that.
Do we want to include
Or
the
any other
standard
discussion?
comments about compliance with the staff review and the...
Compliance with staff
change to the,
review.
The change on the
Change on the
location.
Relocate the entrance.
I think the
Forming the curb is
he was probably thinking it was fire suppressed.
Yeah, it's not.
I know, so that's probably why the 4-inch note's on there.
Okay.
That's, again, preliminary, we'll get that worked out as we go.
All right, so, and then moving the road to center lines matching with the
ODOT says.
opposite. Those are the conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? One abstaining.
Okay.
And I also move that non-controversial cases go to the front of the agenda. All right, so, let's see if we got anything else today. I asked that we have no communications today on the cases, but I'm sure
You want me to show them this, or? Yeah. You do want to see this. It's for open discussion, obviously, we need to maybe discuss height definitions a little more detail. Not see what I added in here on this to not have that situation come up.
Okay, so really what you're trying to do is put a
did this
definition.
like the second.
No, anticipating.
I really would rather not discuss this until I get clarification from the
Yeah, I think it's a
director
little
on
too hot.
Okay.
Like right now.
Okay.
I'd rather not even be a part of that if we're going to do it there. So, all right, let's go for next, or soon, not next one, but maybe next
regular
regular
one.
meeting. Reports from City Planner and Director of Code Enforcement Development. Anyone?
I don't have anything for right now, just, I did have a few points on issues that I think came out from the Stimson Avenue project that I think are germane to the Planning Commission in general, not specific to that project, for things that maybe the Planning Commission would like to focus on for 2012.
Could you hold that off, and let's do that for our next meeting, have our sort of goals.
Yeah, I sure can. That's all I have then. We still have a rezoning request pending out from the Far East Side, just as a reminder to the planning commissioners.
Yeah, that would be a goal. Sure. Mayor?
Where are you now? Announcements and other businesses?
Well, I wanted to see if John had any reports.
Just very quickly, BZA last month, 3 cases, 70 North High was addition to the rear of the existing structure to allow for individual bedrooms instead of dual bedrooms. Needed rear and side yard setbacks, that case was denied 4-1. 21 Morris, Jager's Funeral Home requested to raise the existing house at the property, leaving only a parking lot and accessory structure in an R1. That project was approved for that house to be raised 3-2. 64 Kimes, request to have an office in over 50% of an existing house at the Kimes Nursing Home. It's a residence next door to them, they're going to use for an office. That was approved 4-1. The January BZA, we have one case, it's 27 Meadow Lane. It's a rather interesting case, since in addition to a PUD on a townhouse or condo, I refused it based on side yard, rear yard, and lot coverage variance, ended up saying it needed variances, although the existing structures don't meet side yard, rear yard, and et cetera, but it was a PUD, so I'm sending it there to see.
John, for clarification, I thought it was determined that that was a subdivision, because a change in a PUD...
Fee
It's a
simple.
PUD.
It's a PUD.
We did find the files, it was a PUD. And I think a change to PUD would probably have to come here.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Or they get
Yeah.
variances to do this, and that's, yeah, maybe so. They made application, can you do an addition on a PUD that's 35 years old? And if so, I think you have to meet today's bulk controls, and they don't, so therefore they need a variance. If the BZA says, hey, it was a PUD, we think it needs to go back to Planning Commission and City Council, then that's the route we'll go. So that's kind of the direction I was going with it, and see what happens. So,
Interesting.
because it's greater than 10 years, and I think the statute limited 10 years on a PUD as far as getting it built, something like that, so.
It sounds like at one time there was a little bit of blend between PUDs and subdivisions, because technically
PUDs are part of, it's in the subdivision code, so all PUDs by definition is a subdivision.
But previous to that was not. PUDs used to be in the zoning code, I think, at one time.
I thought it was in subdivision and they moved it to zoning and they pulled it back out.
In the 30 years?
I think...
But I
Harry, do you know?
I thought they pulled it back out.
Okay.
Well, this was the route I was going with it, so. If you feel differently, let me know, and I'll pull it out and we'll bring it here. So,
Okay.
what do you guys think?
Well, it's just in addition to, how many units are on the PUD, or is it just the...
It's a number of buildings,
But it's just addition to
in
one
addition to
building.
one
See, to
simple,
me, I feel like...
simple condo that,
Yeah, but it's going to be
it's
excessive.
not really a condo, I guess, well,
It's a townhouse.
townhouse.
fee simple townhouse.
Yeah, fee simple townhouses.
Yeah.
So this was some of the stuff that I was kind of hinting at about the additions and everything when we were talking about the hickory, some of the stuff that Nancy Vane was concerned about at council with the building of, getting around maybe on building multifamily in an R1, an R2.
Right.
So, and then allowing additions to go onto those, and one owner taking over the whole complex and then building additions onto it. So that sort of thing, that's where I was kind of, this will be a good test for that.
Right. I mean, how big is the addition again?
It's not large, but
It's just one
but
unit, or-
obviously the existing structure in itself has 0 side yard setbacks, and
Right.
the rear yard is, and lot coverage obviously doesn't meet.
What happens if it's not a PUD and someone were to put an addition on a single-family residence that was not meeting bulk controls?
They would go through the BZA.
Yeah, see, I would think you just handle it the same way.
No, they'll go there first, obviously.
Yep.
That's next week?
Correct. Next month.
Next month, okay.
Which,
No,
wait a
it's
minute.
next week.
Yeah, it is
Next week, this is January.
Yeah, you forget, I've been off for a week and a half. The sign ordinance was adopted by city council, we'll begin enforcing that very soon.
Okay, so those little brochure boxes should be disappearing
The
even as
brochure
we speak.
boxes and I've seen a number of signs, for rent signs in the yards and R1s and R2s, those are going to start coming down.
Okay.
Carbon monoxide detector ordinance begins this year. We actually started inspections on them yesterday. I know that didn't come through here, but I thought I'd give you a heads up for anybody watching. They need to be in, and that's part of the requirement in the housing code now. So, effective yesterday. The next planning commission meeting, which will be 2 weeks from now, the 18th, we will have one case. The Captain D's on East State Street is to be tore down, and the gentleman's coming in for an application for a auto parts store. I don't know what brand it is, I can't remember at this time. The drawings are coming FedEx to my office today, so I'll have them out to you very quickly. And last, just so you guys know, we do have a representative from Belpre in our office this week, shadowing our code enforcement officers. They're looking to set up their own code inspection and rental inspection. They have 350 rentals down there that they maybe want to start doing the same thing we are. So, they're in our office this week shadowing us, so I just thought I'd give you a heads up.
Okay.
And that is it.
All right. Question?
No.
Okay.